Alright, we should carry on. Now, you may not like my methods, but when there's clear and present danger around, there is only one way to deal with it, and that's to get rid of the people that tanty like children from the comments below. It's a little bit more than that. I'm not going into it. Now you're going to do something that you should have done a long time ago, aren't you? When you came out last time, Justice Lonergan left you a large trail of names and a very large case. And what you should have done was walked straight back into the Supreme Court of New South Wales and charged them for $100 million more, $250 million, given the collapsing dollar climate. What they did was not only against you, it was against the Crown. So if you go to Section 12, the Crimes Act 1900, and start there, go to the Crimes Act and go through the entire Act and pick out every single crime these people have committed against you. Go to the Criminal Code 1995, Volume 2, Volume 1 and 2, and go through the entire criminal code and define every crime these people committed against you. Now, forced medical procedure is what caused the United Nations inspectors to come to inspect their jails. And New South Wales knew that forensic mental health was responsible for some very heinous war crimes, which is why they refused to let them in. Given that I was living in Queensland, it would be not surprising if that's the reason Queensland refused entry as well, when all the other states just said, come on in, have a look around. So New South Wales said no to the United Nations inspectors. So not only are you going to walk into a Supreme Court of New South Wales and charge these people with all the crimes that they've committed against you, including the war crimes defined in Volume 2 of the Criminal Code, you're going to send that entire documentation to the United Nations inspectors. The Security Council. Okay? If you don't do this and you get back on social media, that asshole Matthew Reason and his fixated persons unit will remain fixated on your person. Will remain fixated. It's funny how the ones that are fixated are titled that, like the Gestapo. So my advice to you is, shh, quiet now. Go and charge them for a very, very, very large sum of money. Take that money and go and turn it into gold and silver.
Once a rabid dog learns the taste of blood, it does not stop at the neighbor's house. Your silence will not protect you and your cowardice will not save you. And one day, it will be at your door, your children and your sky in flames. And when that day comes, may you remember this moment, when you choose disgrace over courage. The so-called international community, how much disgrace can you gorge before you choke? And how many massacres will you swallow until your stomach turns? Do you still believe your silence buys you safety? And one day, the rabid dog you pet, feed and arm will rip out your throat too. Bombing several countries at the same time, and the second attack on the global Sumud flotilla. I know, and we all know. A nuclear power sending drones after powder milk. The history most pathetic headline. But again, that's what Zionists are. Israel, The undefeated champion of bombing food before it reaches starving mouths. Courage Israeli style, starving children until they cannot cry anymore. The terror entity that hides behind checkpoints, that aims at journalists and bombs schools, that kills from the sky because it cannot face resistance on the ground. Israel, you're not strong, you're terrified. A little coward with fighter jets and sugar daddies, at war with truth, scared of tuna cans and baby formula on 8 ships. A coward so small, it must murder children to feel tall. Israel, history will not crown you, it will spit on you. You will not be remembered as warriors, but as scavengers, as the world's most heavily armed coward, the nuclear ghetto that declared holy war on bread, water, and truth. A rotting empire of checkpoints and rubble, shrieking about survival while slaughtering humanity itself. And when the pages of history are written, your legacy will not be strength, it will be shame. The shame of bombing schools, the shame of starving infants, the shame of launching drones at baby formula, the shame of being so terrified of life itself. You build your existence on death. You're not David, you're not even Goliath. You're the rabid dog gnawing on cribs and caskets, thinking the world would call it strength? A coward with drones. A coward whose very survival depends on the starvation of infants, of butchering of innocents, and stealing their homeland, and the silence of the world. Israel, the coward entity that butchers babies, the rabid dog, feeding now on Gaza's blood, but one day, foaming and mad, it will turn on the very hands that fed it.
The rest of the people need to realise that Desi Freeman and Wayne Glue are selling you a wrong path, and they came unstuck. Wouldn't be surprised if they challenge you, Wayne, and arrest you for being party to that, aiding and abetting that, manipulating that, teaching these people to get into trouble. You're a con man. It's very clear that you're hanging around with Rodney Culleton, another con man. Now, Ricardo Bossi, don't hang around with these con men. You're trying to do politics with something that is being done at law. Remember Ben Robert Smith, Ricardo? Do you remember Ben Robert Smith, Ricardo? Do you remember David McBride, Ricardo? So my warning to you is something higher is at play that these idiots are not aware of, because they chose to be Gap Party and manipulate the people into fundraising. And that's it. There is nothing that they will provide the people other than a bus to yell from. And you want to join that? We have the ability to take this whole entire system down at law, which means no belligerence. Remember Canberra, Bossy, and yelling from your truck bed, Bossy? You remember all that stuff? Oh, you should sit on all of your flags. Fuck off. You should take your RSL flag and realise that we could be your best friend or your biggest problem.
Who made the Nazis?
Who made the Nazis?
Yeah.
God. Hugo Boss. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, Hugo Boss outfitted the Nazis.
That's what I meant. Let me finish.
And they crushed it.
Why do you think Nazis get such a bad
You
rap?
guys don't like fashion? What's that?
Why do you think, I'll say it again, why do you think Nazis get such a bad rap?
Because it was on video. You can't deny it.
You can't.
You can't just pretend it didn't happen and not put it in the history books. They filmed the shit
Right.
because they thought they were going to win.
All right.
You know who else thought they were going to win? The Catholic Church. And they wanted them to win because they were going to take out a whole religion. That was good for their business. And then all of a sudden they've lost. And then they had to give back the gold and to the families like, oh, sorry about that. Oh, is that us? Oh, yeah.
You gonna see the new Indiana Jones? I'm just trying to keep it light, Bill. I'm sorry.
Or your biggest problem. And I'd prefer to be your best friend, Bossy, because all your soldier mates and all those currently serving the government of the day deserve better than to serve a mob of criminals that act like a mafia gang inside our parliament, of which they occupy, Ricardo. Now, criminal can't rely on the rules that it uses if it's outside of those rules, Ricardo. So, find yourself a good solicitor, and if you can afford it, a good barrister, and go head to head with fixated persons, forensic mental health, New South Wales courts, magistrates courts, because you'll open the door to charging all of the rest of them. Close your Facebooks down, close your TikToks down, open one YouTube account, and don't go ranting on it, and do not speak about what you're doing at all. Do not feed the monster so that it can bite you. So I tried to warn you last time. You should have been in the Supreme Court on the front foot, charging Matthew Reason and every other name, every psychiatrist, nurse, doctor involved in that forced medical procedure that happened in a place called forensic mental health, a very unlawful branch of what's inside that New South Wales jail system. You know this because they tortured me with the same thing.
Damn, G, what happened?
Shit, I thought I was one of them little stunt riders that be doing the wheelies. I'm not. I need to sit down somewhere. I thought I could be like them, try to learn how to do wheelies in 1 week, didn't work. I'll be back though.
I'm not going to go into what happened to me, but that head of security came up to me and said, "You're a very dangerous man." Might it be because I can see the war crimes going on inside New South Wales jails up until this very, very day? Up until this very day. They've been going on for what? How long? Probably 50, 60, 70 years, right, Matthew Reason? Now, I'll repeat myself. Matthew Reason is a war criminal working for a militarised police force which is guided by the rules of engagement in the Hague Conventions. And to go outside of those rules of engagement gives him no protections in those rules of engagement. You're a fucking war criminal, Matthew Reason, and you should be dragged off to the Hague after a courtroom and hung from the neck until dead. Hung from the neck until dead. And if you want to choose, firing squad, while you're tied to a stake in their backyard. Guillotine, hawapa! Take your head off, Matthew Reason. War criminal police officer of Fixated Persons New South Wales that committed grave offences against the rules of engagement in international law that he is supposed to abide by. And that includes everyone else in that list that Justice Lonergan left for you, So now's the time to find someone to represent you. And I'm talking someone with some real skill here, and let them take a good couple of $1 million reward for their efforts, and see this entire fixated Gestapo unit of the SS militarised Nazi police force called New South Wales suffer the consequences at the peril of his own life that he signed up for. We're
going to round up the Jews, and what we're going to do is we're going to ask them for some advice. We're going to say, please help. We need your help with our economy. Right now our economy is low. We need it big. We need big economy. We need more Jews.
Right? He deserves to be put before a court. He deserves to defend his actions, and he deserves a right to choose which way they kill him. Firing squad might be the easiest, Matthew. Just hope they hit you in the head. Everyone would like to see you hang because you'll piss and shit yourself, and that'll be funny. You're the one that chose to go outside of the rules of engagement, Matthew Reason. Now you are David Halpin, that muppet on the ABC that slandered everyone and called them sovereign citizens. He started that game, remember this. David Halpin started that game by putting me into forensic mental health to try and shut me up. Except it didn't work, did it, David? And you went on mental health leave, and now the government's using a mental health patient in its propaganda on the ABC. And President Trump came out yesterday, and an ABC reporter asked him about his wealth. President Trump turned around and attacked the ABC, saying that they had been destroying Australia. Very bad for Australia, the ABC, because of the recent sovereign citizen ideology that they pushed on Desi Freeman, who's merely just an incompetent litigant supported by that criminal muppet, Wayne Glue.
Generally regarded to be the wealthiest man who's ever occupied the White House.
I hope so.
How much wealthier are you now than when you returned to the White House?
Well, I don't know. The deals I made, for the most part, other than what my kids are doing, you know, they're running my business. But most of the deals that I've made were made before. And that's what I've done for a life. I built buildings, like I'm building a building here. You know where I'm building? You know what? You see that area?
Yeah.
That is going to be the greatest ballroom anywhere in the world. And for 150, so it gives me pleasure to do it for the country.
That is it appropriate, President Trump, that a president in office should be engaged in so much business activity?
Well, I'm really not. My kids are running the business. I'm here. You know what the activity, where are you from?
I'm from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, Four Corners program.
Well, the Australians, you're hurting Australia right. In my opinion, you are hurting Australia very much right now. And they want to get along with me. You know, your leader is coming over to see me very soon. I'm going to tell him about you. You set a very bad tone.
Well,
go ahead.
So now you've got a president talking up about this slander that the ABC is doing on its own people. Well, that's because it's not our ABC. It's not our ABC. It's the executive branch of government's propaganda mouthpiece that does the bidding of the Zionists that have got a thumb over elbow. A thumb over elbow. And this is very evident because I was hoping that Ewer would win. And I was watching the whole entire saga, and that whole sovereign citizen ideology got shot down in flames pretty quickly when I did a video and pointed out their fallacies, their falsehoods. And now that you've come out winning again, Elbow is probably going, oh fuckety fuck, there is a King of Australia defined at law, and Elbow just tried to undermine the Constitution and remove your Anzac from it altogether. That is a serious crime of treason against the Constitution, and I won't go into my defence there. But Elbow, you're now in my sights. Your whole entire team is now in my sights. There's a choice here. Serve the government of the day or go down with its ship. Because I can be your best friend, Ricardo, or I can be a total asshole, and you'll find out how bad that can be. Now, I'm going to go on with chapter 44 today. I think we should carry on, but at the same time, you should be aware that this is a war, a literal and technical war between good and evil. And the evil is trying to undermine you, enslave you, and give you digital IDs and make you slaves to a one world government based in the United Nations, manipulated by countries, and they have lost. BRICS has come to undermine the petrodollar. The military war machine that America once was no longer exists. Remember, they left all their hardware in Afghanistan, and now they're running on fumes, and they are pretending, gaslighting you. That's what Zionists do.
What I'm saying, if they are so enthusiastic to establish a Palestinian state, they have huge territories, Spain and France. If they are so enthusiastic to do that, they can do that in their own territory.
Zionists like to gaslight you and tell you you're doing the things that they're doing, but now we look at a Holocaust occurring, right? That this government and the former governments have all been involved in. Penny, wong wong. 2 balls, Penny. Did you just send Raptor F-14 hardware to Israel? Oh, they're non-militarized aeroplane parts that go in aeroplanes that drop bombs on children. And you enable that, Penny 2 balls, Wong. You enable that instead of saying, no, we won't participate in your heinous international war crimes anymore. You're under the thumb of those people who said, give me hardware. And you said, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. 1 for the F-14, 1 for the spy equipment, and 1 for just being our puppet master. Didn't you, Penny? Didn't you, Albo? And we can see this international law working because the Treaty of Versailles did what to German New Guinea, Albo? What happened there to German New Guinea, Albo? Interesting, right, that Papua New Guinea got its 50th anniversary of self-determination and independence at international law. It didn't sign that treaty with you, Albo. It signed that treaty with what I'm standing in. You're an imposter, Albo, and they all know it. They all know it. It's very evident by the way you were treated, like the stupid little child that you are in that war game. Fun game, isn't it, Albo, when those Zionist Jews leave you to be hung out and dried? It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. Right, so chapter 44. Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and the sun, the moon, and the stars, foundation, whom I have chosen. So we see this stone of remembrance that was built in 1927, right? After imperial conferences separated us from the motherland. That became a foundation stone, and all your cities, we've mentioned this before, all the capital cities around the country and all those small towns where all of you went and raised a flag and consecrated a flag and returned back to whom you were, whom you once were. Thus saith the Lord, all caps, that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. Put down this foundation, right? And they spilt blood to live by still waters. So Moses cracked that rock twice, didn't he? Blood came out and water came out to live by those still waters. For I will pour water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessing upon thine offspring. As a people, sons of the Commonwealth, and they shall spring up as among the grass, as willows by the watercourses. Now, willow trees are those wide ones with all the hanging threads, like a little cubby house, shelter, right? Amongst the grass, the seedlings, all the ones that are new to waking up after this flood had occurred under Submerged Seas and Lands Act 1973. Submerged seas. How do you submerge a sea according to law? Think about that one. Submerged Seas and Lands Acts. How do they submerge the seas? One shall say, I am the Lord's, all caps, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, all caps, and surname himself by the name of the sun, the moon, and the stars. That would be Stephen I, King of Australia, defined according to law. According to law. Thus saith the Lord, the King of Australia, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last, and beside me there is no God. The spirit of your Anzac, that Trinity you see not only in the King's Domain in Melbourne, but in Sydney's Martin Place. There is the Son and the Father standing back to the crypt stone with Queen Victoria on the building behind. And if you line that all up and take a photo, you'll see all of that heritage through. And who, as I, shall call and shall declare it and set it in order for me, since I appointed the ancient people and the things that are coming and shall come, let them show unto them. And who, as I, shall call and shall declare it and set it in order for me. Now, you has done something very important here, which is why you're going to shut the fuck up. You are. You're going to put this before the courts and charge them for all of their war crimes. All of their crimes. Every single name that has ever tainted you up until this last time. Every single name. Now, not the judiciary, the magistrates, the police magistrates, working under Hague Conventions, working for a police prosecutor under the Association of Police Prosecutors out of Haagstad in The Hague. Google that, everybody, and realise, and then Google your prosecutors, and you'll find they are part of what's called the Prosecutors Corps, a military arm and rank of police officers in a militarised police force. We know that from Ewer's first document from his case. Ewer, go quiet this time. Thus saith the Lord, all caps, the King of Australia, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, all caps. I am the first, and I am the last, and beside me there is no God. And who, as I, shall call, and shall declare it? Okay, now go further on. Fear ye not, neither be afraid. Have not I told thee from that time, and have declared it? Ye are even my witnesses. Is there a God beside me? Yeah, there is no God. I don't know any. So, we see a government godless. Godless. This Australia that they all serve has no gods. They make a graven image. They that make a graven image are all of them vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit. And they are their own witnesses. They see not, nor know that they may be ashamed. Well, is that not the truth now? Is that not the truth now? Matthew Reason is mightily ashamed in front of all of you. We will name this man till the cows come home. He wore graven images on his shoulder. He wore graven images on his chest. He wore graven images on his lapels. He wore graven images on his forehead.
Australians are fed up. The game's up. When you sit in the House of Reps like I have, you realise it's just a theatre. The Labor and Liberal guys go out for dinner every Friday night together, and the deal is that you scratch my back while you're in government and I'll scratch yours and stuff the people. That's what it's all about, really. And when you're sitting in the House of Representatives, you've got the Speaker, you've got a box on your left and a box on your right which have unelected people in. You don't know who they are. They're faceless people, but they run the country. There's 12 of them from the Labor Party, 12 from the Liberal Party, and they write the speeches for the parliamentarians. They're handed over and they read the word verbatim. And if they don't, they get thrown out of their party. They lose their endorsement. They don't represent you, but that's what happens. But I was an independent member of the House of Representatives. You're not supposed to have them. I was actually an Australian. And I used to ask a question. They allowed me to ask a question once every 14 days. But I wasn't allowed to have an apparatchik to sit in the box to tell me what I should do. I could say what I wanted. And every time I said something, they cringed. And every time I did anything for this country, they went out to malign me. The Liberal Party, the Labor Party, the media, the whole lot. Because the whole lot are in it together. And only now are the Australian people realising what I was saying in 2013 was right. Only now are they understanding, as their life gets worse, as their country loses its moral fabric, that we have to do something about.
Who hath formed a God, a molten or graven image that is profitable for nothing? Behold, all his fellows shall be ashamed, and the workmen, they are of men. Let them all be gathered together. Let them stand up. Yet they shall fear, and they shall be ashamed together. And I saw that when I went through this entire process. You are? They fast became ashamed and ran away. They fast became ashamed and ran away. The smith with the tongs both worketh in the coals, and fashioneth it with hammers, and worketh it with the strength of his arms, yea? He is hungry, and his strength faileth. He drinketh no water, and is faint, they start to realise, oh crap, they serve foreign powers and there are no gods among them. They follow the orders of men, the government of the day. Pay attention to that, Ricardo, because all those boys dying in battlefields across the world are serving men and not God, whereas we already discussed at 9:6. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and a fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. The government are public servants that are supposed to serve you, Ricardo Bossi, but instead they are covered in graven images and have served no God and force you to serve the word of man and not spirit by asking you to not go on social media while you're serving the government of the day, because you could be held accountable by the government of the day when you're supposed to serve God and hold your government to account. You don't do that. You went and played politics with flags and trucks in Canberra. You chose to do that, Ricardo. The carpenter stretcheth out his rule. He marketh it out with a line. He fitteth it with planes. He marketh it out with a compass, and maketh after the figure of a man, according to the beauty of a man, that it may remain in the house. That's important, isn't it? That's setting down the man of which you are all male and female in that mankind. That city where you are all male and female of that city. He heweth him down cedars, and take the cypress and the oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest. He planteth an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof and warm himself, yea? He kindleth it and baketh bread, yea? He maketh a god and worshippeth it. He maketh it a graven image, and falleth down thereto.
All right, Sonny, what's your game?
Shh. Just murdered Jason Donovan.
God have mercy upon us. You should fix that.
Sounds like them taking from your kingdom and mimicking it and using it to burn fire to make bread, which makes them fall. Debt, a loaf of bread, slicing that up and giving it to everyone so they can trade. But we have this circular story of you being manipulated by public servants. And other places in the Bible talk about where you'll end up on the floor scrounging for the scraps after they've been given to the dogs of war, the military. So this administrator is taking the whole entire lot and throwing the scraps on the floor, and the military is scrambling for them first and then leaving the crumbs behind for all of you. And that's why your house is worth $1 million right now, because they baketh bread. It's very simple. It's a debt book. It's a debtor's relationship in a militarized sense. He burneth part thereof in the fire, with part thereof he eateth flesh. He roasteth roast, and is satisfied. Yea, he warmeth himself and saith, Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire. And the residue thereof he maketh a god, even his graven image. He falleth down unto it, and worshippeth it, and prayeth unto it, and saith, Deliver me, for thou art my God. Deliver me from a debt machine by being a debt machine. Doesn't make sense.
What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
If you hold a gun and I hold a gun, we can talk about the law. If you hold a knife and I hold a knife, we can talk about rules. If you come empty-handed and I come empty-handed, we can talk about reason. But if you hold a gun and I only have a knife, then the truth lies in your hand. If you have a gun and I have nothing, then what you hold in your hands isn't just a weapon. It's my life.
But all of you believed in that foreign blue ensign, right? You said, I'll pray for that God, the debt machine. They have not known nor understood, for he hath shut their eyes, and they cannot see, and their hearts, that they cannot understand. They dumbed you down in your schools for the last 40 years to the point where you can't see a world beneath what is an administrator. You still wholeheartedly believe in an administrator as a nation. We saw that in the Tanty. So we'll call that the Great Australian Tanty. The Great Australian Tanty, where everyone took to the streets thinking that having a little tanty in the streets would demonstrate to a foreign power that you were subordinate to them. That's all. Please, sir, can I have some more? Here's my child for your battleground. So the government goes about using all your children for its wars. And it manipulates them in the schools to believe they serve the government of the day and forget about God. You'll serve these graven images, right? You'll serve these graven images. And none considereth in his heart, neither their knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burned part of it in the fire, yea, and I have also baked bread upon the coals thereof. I have roasted flesh and eaten it, and shall I make the residue thereof an abomination? Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? That's the locusts eating and consuming the consumers, consuming the entire branches of the tree. And this administrator saying, sure, I'll just cut it down to the stump. Then your whole lineage and history in this is gone, which is what Albo tried to do with the voice. And I'm going to say very clearly that you don't have a clue. You don't have a clue at all what Albo tried to do. He tried to manipulate you into changing the executive branch of government and remove the preamble from your constitution, which set in line God, King and country. They've been trying to do this through their Zionist puppet masters since we stood up 20 years ago. They've been trying to do this by using Aborigine, who should have their own sovereignty, take from them and then use them to attempt to undermine you. There's multiple different sovereignties on this land that they have taken from this land. And you all play party to this politics instead of standing in the blessing of Almighty God, so defined in that preamble. Now, you'll remember Scott Morrison said it. Most prime ministers have said it before Scott Morrison. There's no preamble to the Constitution, wah. We should install a preamble to... Why are you trying to remove the preamble from the Constitution, all of you Greens and Labor Party members? Would that be an act of treason? A serious act of treachery against the Crown and its people? Yes, it would be. Yes, it would be. This would be one of the most serious offences against the country by trying to undermine it. And the Lib Nats are not excusable from this. Who's been pushing a Republican ideology on you year after year after year after year in a bid to remove you from your own constitution?
It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News, during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells. The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day? They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices.
2 SUVs were filled up with between 9 and 12 boxes and computers.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind. In jail, the 5 Israelis were repeatedly interrogated and given lie detector tests. Stephen Gordon was their American lawyer.
They were asked questions if they had ever been approached by or hired by any non-United States intelligence community.
While there is still some debate among American intelligence officials, many investigators believe some of the men were part of an Israeli operation aimed at monitoring radical Islamic charities that support groups like Hamas, something lawyers for the 5 men and the Israeli government strongly deny.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
You, as sons of the Commonwealth, from your own constitution. And this is where I said in previous videos, we no longer play this stupid game you all want to play. We are here to defend our constitution. It stands in the lineage of God, King and country. And now that that King has been defined through the scripture on the Supreme Court record multiple times, we have a right to defend it and stand in it and point out all of those that have committed offences against it. And this is a serious thing that some of you are starting to realise now. These people are war criminals that do not deserve to sit in the offices of ministers of God that they sit in. And I'll be very clear here, they are ministers of God, making them in a line of authority which has a false God, or no God at all. A graven image that doesn't stack up to the line of authority in your ancestors. And And this is the tough reality here. They are at war against you. They do not serve you. I'll repeat that. They do not serve you. You can see it by this foreign interference that keeps happening from that Zionist Jewish community that likes to kill and rape children. I'll say that again. Kill and rape children. Are you going to sit there while a bunch of child rapists and child murderers run your government? Are you going to sit there while a bunch of child rapists and a bunch of child murderers sit in the Zionist Federation of Australia backed by all that fucking money? You're going to let them get away with that. You're going to let them get away with that. No more. No more.
We should include in the terms of reference the institution of the law. And I have documents here which the Royal Commission has seen to justify that case, and in fact every Attorney General, from Attorney General Ruddock till now, has seen some of these documents, and they are police documents, and they are very disturbing. So, having produced a set of documents to the Royal Commission under an order to produce, which includes, disturbingly, documents that name in one document 28 people as alleged pedophiles, signed off by Gary Crook QC, counsel assisting an earlier Royal Commission, includes a whole lot of prominent people. And I think to protect the discretion of the Royal Commission, I won't comment on what the Commission thought, except that they thought it was outside the terms of reference of the Royal Commission. We have in Australia, sadly, a compromise at the highest of levels. There's a former Prime Minister on this list, and it is a police document.
No more at all, because we have the ability now to walk into those federal courts and start laying all of this history down on the court record and watch them squirm. Watch them squirm. Albo won't know what hit him. Scott Morrison won't know what hit him. The Federal Executive Council of Australia won't know what hit it. Who do you serve, Governor General? Who do you serve, Governor General? A bunch of child rapists, a bunch of child murderers, a Holocaust creator. That's who you serve, Governor General. They have not known nor understood, for he hath shut their eyes, that they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. And none considereth in his heart, neither is there knowledge nor understanding to say, I have burnt part of it in the fire, yeah? I have baked bread upon the coals thereof, I have roasted flesh and eaten it, and shall I make the residue thereof an abomination? Shall I fall down to the stock of a tree? He feedeth on ashes, a deceived heart hath turned him aside, that he cannot deliver his soul, nor say, is there not a lie in my right hand? Now there's a little key there, an indicator of left hand and right hand. Something doesn't match up, does it? Something from a land far, far away that has come here to treat you like this. Remember these, O Jacob, and sun, moon, and stars. Remember these, O Jacob and Australia, for thou art my servant. I have formed thee. Thou art my servant. O Australia, O sun, moon, and stars, that thou shalt not be forgotten of me, because something lines up, not. And that's the technical reality here. Something lines up to define a foundation. A foundation. For thou art my servant, I have formed thee. Thou art my servant, O Australia, O sun, moon, and stars. Thou shalt not be forgotten of me, lest ye forget. Lest ye forget. Remembrance Day. And go to the shrine and the sun comes through the ceiling at 11 a.m. on the 11th of the 11th, 11/11/11, right? That's timing. That's definitive in that it plays out every year at the same timing, regardless of the Gregorian Roman calendar. It happens at the same timing. I have blotted out as a thick cloud thy transgressions, and as a cloud thy sins return unto me, for I have redeemed thee. Now, redemption song, we talked about this previously. Go and listen to Bob Marley's redemption song. It's your returning to the foundations of your gods and your country to recognize this Zionist agenda that is in your country, right? This Zionism that brainwashes you out of your own Zion, right? They'll play this literally. They think this is a claim to Palestine when international law defined very clearly that it wasn't.
Hello everyone, how are you? I miss you a lot, really. Today there's a lot of drones. I'm gonna sing you a song today with drone. شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالهيل هيل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويل ويل من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالهيل هيل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويل ويل من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالليل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويل ويل من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله شيل شيل يا جمالي شيل يا حوطك بالله دم الشهيد معطر بالليل يا ليلو ويل ويل عالظالمي ويل ويل من الله لا أسهر على نجوم الليل أنا ناديله.
Israel had no right to be in Palestine. It terrorized the British that were under a mandate, right? German Papua New Guinea was under a mandate given to Australia in the League of Nations. Well, Palestine was under mandate given to Britain in the League of Nations. That's all nations, like they did with the vote recently on a two-party state in Palestine. That's all the nations of the world saying, yes, Palestine should grow up and become its own country, and Britain will nanny it to do that. And it said to Papua, yes, you should become your own country, and Australia will nanny you to do that. And Albo went to the 50th anniversary of that nannying, where they became a self-determined country at international law. They did achieve that 50 years ago, which is why they had their celebrations yesterday or the day before, this week. So we can see this playing out. Elbow had to honour that. So why is Elbow honouring the invaders of Palestine, those Ergun fighters? Now, Zippy Livni was the foreign minister for Israel. Her father is the first modern terrorist. The first modern terrorist. Eitan Livni. Eitanlivni. Google it. This man came from Europe, Hungarian Jews and Middle Eastern Jews came down into Palestine because they wanted back what they lost in World War I, World War II. These child killers and these child rapists have been doing this for a lot longer than you think. And when you think about adrenochrome and you think about witchcraft, where do you think that all stems from? Where do you think that all stems from in history? Sing, O ye heavens, for the Lord, all caps, hath done it. Shout, ye lower parts of the earth. Break forth into singing, ye mountains, O forest and every tree therein. For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob and glorified himself in the sun, moon, and stars, and glorified himself in the kingdom of Australia. You have to put this into the context of a country. When we look at every country around the world, the first 5 books of this Bible are considered to be the law of Moses. And the law of Moses is the way that international law works. All these countries can refer to that because they are all founded in it. So this bastardizing the literal out of the allegory or parable that is spoken here is what Zionism is. Brainwash all of you into being subordinate to a bunch of child killers and child rapists we call Zionists, like that Zionist Federation of Australia. It harbours rapists, it harbours murderers, it supports the murder of innocent civilians. And here the new numbers come out for Palestine last week. 860,000 people have they murdered in the last 18 months. After finally being caught out for their October 7th lies. And as soon as Charlie Kirk started speaking up about those lies, right, what happened? What happened? Did a false flag happen? And they took out his character? What happened to the actor behind the character? What happened to the actor behind the character? Thus saith the Lord, all caps, thy Redeemer, and he that formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord, all caps, that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself. This story of the heavens and the earth, we could go back to Genesis 1 here, right? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, capital G, lowercase. And we could go to Exodus 15. Exodus 15:3. The Lord, all caps, is a man of war. The Lord, all caps, is his name. A man of war. A king. Founded in the Lord of hosts. Defined by the sun, the moon, and the stars through an anchor point called the Stone of Remembrance. The Stone of Remembrance. that frustrateth the tokens of the liars, and make diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward, and maketh their knowledge foolish. That's what we've been doing. Frustrating the liars like Albo, that had to come along and push a voice ideology using a sovereign people to undermine your sovereignty. For those liberals like Scott Morrison to try and push a republic. John Howard, push a republic. Robert Menzies, push a republic to undermine your gods. The tokens of the liars. Remember when they had a plebiscite on marriage for the plebs, the plebeians? What's the opposite to a pleb? The word is patrician. The word is patrician. Patricians and plebs, plebeians. The lords and the paupers. The ones that rule and the ones that do what they're told. Now, they didn't go to a referendum because they're trying to undermine your blessing of Almighty God as defined in the, let me get it. I'll come back.
English law, right? The British Nationality Act of 1948 and 1981 is responsible for the mess you're in now because it removed part of the English constitutional protections that were put in place by our ancestors to stop people that were not born of English parents being in that parliament. So if you think of people like David Lammy, there's many on the Conservative side as well, but David Lammy, Diane Abbott, various different people, because of our English constitution, they are not allowed to be in that parliament. Sadiq Khan couldn't be a mayor, right? Because our constitution forbids it, right?
See here, we have this very old Bible, this Australian Bible Society Bible, and it's got names in the front of it, right? So 1865, July 12th, pleased to, from James Lucas, the word's been torn, to John Beard, his book, from James Lucas to John Beard, his book, 1865. Okay, so a Bible from the era of the Civil War, where England was started to be bankrupt and America had been bankrupted, to Common Prayer. So this is the Common Book of Prayer of the Church of England, which applies to the Anglican Church here in Australia. And this defined marriage. This defined how to run a church. This defined all the processes of communion. There we go. Matrimony. Solemnization of matrimony. And the government came along and said, yeah, we're going to undermine that with the Marriage Act. And then they asked all of you to go to a referendum, and they realised they couldn't undermine that anymore. So they went to a plebiscite and said, all you plebs out there, all you paupers, do you want to undermine your gods? And everyone went, yes, please. Let's undermine who we are as a people even further, because we're brainwashed from our reality. We live in a serf farm. We live in a prison, and we'll let the prison guards do what they want with us. You never stood up for who you were and actually put it back on the table at them, right? That frustrateth the tokens of the liars, and maketh diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward. Diviners. Those Scottish Rite Freemasons that are inside your Victorian Freemasonry in the lineage of Queen Victoria. Might that be why? Might that be why you're no longer anchored to all of your divination, your star work? Like we said, do they match up? Or is Charlie Boy over here and not here? Right? Are those Zionists anchored in your king's domain? Or do they make you forget it and allow something to undermine it, like some tantying children in a sovereign camp? Camp sovereignty that's been allowed to be set up in your own king's domain by a bunch of foreigners that run your government, that are trying to undermine your gods so that you disappear, lest ye forget. Well, in the morning, the sun rose, and we did remember them. On the going down of the sun, when everything falls apart and the sun goes down on your realm. In the morning, when you learn and bring it to life again, in the morning, we shall remember them, right? Is remembrance through that anchor that's on the door of the shrine of remembrance? Interesting, right? That turneth wise men backward and maketh their knowledge foolish. Like those police, liars. Like those magistrates, liars. Like those politicians, Pauline Hanson wearing a Zionist Israeli scarf, demonstrating very clearly she's under the thumb of something very evil that kills children and rapes children all around the world. I wonder why that American president's having so much trouble with those Epstein files. And I wonder why Heffernan mentioned 29 hidden names in the Parliament, the judiciary, which means the Supreme and High Courts. And we know that Bob Hawke was a pedophile. We know that Bob Hawke was a pedophile. And Bob Hawke's words, his dying words were, if I was to be born again, I wish I would be born a Jew. What he meant was, if I was born again, I wish I was born into that nasty mob of Zionists that kill and rape children. That's what he meant. It's time to be honest with yourselves now. These people are evil. These people are dishonest. These people are filth. We shall call them pigs in the mud that deserve to be slaughtered, hung from the neck until dead for their war crimes after a trial, right? Every man deserves a fair trial. So you can't go saying, I'm going to hang that man. No, let a judge do that for you. Let a judge do that for you. All of the law is on the table, and that judge is kind of obligated to adhere to that law. And if you go outside of the rules of engagement and you lie and cheat those rules, you deserve to be held accountable to those rules.
Tom Tugendhat.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I suggest that we are in a somewhat through the looking glass world? Because over the last few hours, we've heard some very clear questions from the Honourable Member for Kenilworth, who's no longer in his place, who has explained that we're going through a circular argument of legal intervention that comes to absolutely no response. And yet on the other side, all we're hearing is the ChatGPT-generated press releases, I rise to speak, I rise to speak, I rise to speak. ChatGPT knows you're there, but that is an Americanism that we don't use. But still, keep using it, because it makes it clear that this place has become absurd. This building, this chamber, is a waste of time, a complete waste of time. When our electors hear and our fellow citizens hear that actually we've listened to the arguments of Mauritius, we've listened to the arguments of China, we've listened to the arguments of India and the United States, but we're not willing to listen to the arguments of Britain. We're not willing to stand up for the interests of the British people. We're not willing to look at the strategic interests of UK defence. It is the job of sovereign governments, I thought it was the job of our government, clearly not this government, to stand up for our interests. But instead, this government does something quite different. Instead, what this government does, the moment it's challenged, is to run away. Brave Sir Keir bravely turned his tail and fled. This is why the British people feel so disenchanted at the moment, because we see changes of government and no changes of policy. We see a continuation and simply the whip's briefings coming out again. We see simply the pointlessness of democracy in this place, because frankly, we might as well not bother being here. The Foreign Office stitched this one up. The Minister can't even change the judgment, and he's sacrificed everything on the whims of an international process that has no interest to the British people.
You deserve to be hung from the neck until dead for your serious international war crimes. War crimes. Don't forget Ben Roberts-Smith there. Don't forget that David McBride there. Isn't that right, Ricardo? Did you commit some sort of war crimes on the ground in Afghanistan, Ricardo? Were you in some sort of command line responsibility underneath Angus Campbell? Did you allow your men to be hung out and dried instead of holding people like Angus Campbell responsible? Did you stand up against those jibby-jabbies that came through the military under the auspices of Governor General Hurley, an open Zionist, putting that drug into the hands of Angus Campbell and his COVID task force commander, Lieutenant Commander Fruin? Is that right, Ricardo? Are you going to speak up about that, Ricardo? Or are you going to go and join a bunch of criminals and con men like Wayne Glue and Rodney Cullerton, who both tried to use God's flag and failed and failed and failed? Isn't that right, Craig Kelly? Isn't that right, Clive Palmer? Thus saith the Lord thy Redeemer, and he that hath formed thee from the womb. I am the Lord that maketh all things, that stretcheth forth the heavens alone, that spreadeth abroad the earth by myself, that frustrateth the tokens of the liars, and make diviners mad, that turneth wise men backward, and maketh their knowledge foolish. Why don't you sit on all your flags and raise this RSL flag? Isn't that what you did in Canberra, Ricardo Bossy? Isn't that what you did in Canberra, Ricardo? Are you a war criminal? What did you do in those Afghanistan battlefields? Don't forget the United States had to leave $2.6 billion worth of hardware behind while they ran, leaving actual people that served them on the ground to be murdered by the mob. Don't forget that's what happened, and that's not Biden's responsibility, is it? You could all blame Biden, the child hair-sniffing freak that he is. You could all blame him for that. Because it's not politics, is it, Ricardo? It's not politics, is it, Ricardo? Now you've got a president in the United States that likes to tell 13-year-olds, well, in 3 years' time, I'll be able to date you. I'll be able to fuck you. Does it sound like one of them pedophiles to you? Does that sound like one of them pedophiles to you? What did Heffernan say about your own government? 29 names. I'm sure one of them was Bob Hawke. But we could talk about another Prime Minister and Hillsong. and the 90s, and the disappearing of Hillsong children from the Hillsong Church in Fortitude Valley, Brisbane. You add all of that up and you'll come up with a name that was a recent Prime Minister. A recent Prime Minister. That confirmeth the word of his servant, and performeth the counsel of his messengers, that saith to Jerusalem, Thou shalt be inhabited, and to the cities of Judah, Ye shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. The decayed places like your towns, the cities like the capital cities with their flags all linked to the foundations of a realm through their shrines, like the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne, the Eternal Flame in Brisbane. We're starting to see now that God laid down a foundation that would link you to your ancestors, and this government serves it not. It doesn't serve it. It serves the dumb Zionists that come here from foreign shores in their foreign admiralties with their foreign admiralty flags, to push your red duster aside and say, no, you can't fly that. You need to be a United Nations Trust Territory national, as defined in the Nationality and Citizenship Act of 1948. They said, get on board the ship. And you all went, yes, sir, I'll get on board. Right? And you served that foreign government through citizenship in a United Nations Trust Territory. Go and read the Citizenship Act 1948 and you'll realise you've been hoodwinked out of the foundations to your country into serving the government of the day that came here on a foreign boat. Not your government, not your boat, not your admiralty. A foreign admiralty that came here to rule the Pacific Rim. The Pacific Rim. Remember, Albo always said, we're out there on the Pacific Rim. What did Morrison always said. What did Albo say this week? Where do you think German New Guinea is? On the Pacific Rim. On the Pacific Rim.
They were a baby killer. Now fuck off. Fuck off.
No, he'd ask you why you kicked someone out when you found out they were Israeli. Why did you?
They were a baby killer. Now fuck off. Fuck off. Excuse me.
Do you always ask people with ethnic accents where they come from?
You don't. Leave me a review.
Well, do you always ask people with ethnic backgrounds?
My business.
Do you always ask people with
Get
ethnic?
out of my business. You're trespassing.
Do you know that's against the law to kick somebody?
It's not actually.
The Racial Discrimination Act. You can't, based on nationality.
Israelis aren't a race.
Ye shall be built, and I will raise up the decayed places thereof. It's your faith in your town and your community, and the knowing that the Reserve Bank is the thing that's been undermining you all this time, that saith to the deep, be dry, and I will dry up the rivers. I will take their anchor point away from them and take away their ability to put down liquidity pools. And what did the Pope say about his liquidity pool? I'll bring in all movable property. You'll let go of my pedophile priest, George Pell, because he's my banker. And you'll let him do my banking instead of locking him up for his pedophilia. Instead of locking him up for his pedophilia. So someone in military command said, here is your money man, and let your money man take the liquidity out of the market. And then the market shut itself and collapsed. And Israel was left only with one choice. Slaughter, 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 Holocaust, genocide, slaughter, 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 to try and stay in command. And now it's having a lot of problems in all those countries it has manipulated under 80 years of peacekeeping into staying in command there. And that's why the Zionist Federation of Australia should be deemed to be a foreign influence and should be deemed a terrorist organisation, given that Eaton Livney was the first defined modern terrorist on the court record. On the court record. Now, he was jailed for 12 years for bombing up trains in Palestine. And then Ergun fighters from Europe came down and blasted him out of jail, and then they called a Nakba. They asked all the other European Jews to invade Palestine so they could take it over. And the British said, whoa, we don't want to deal with this war, international world. We're packing up and going home. We're only supposed to nanny these people. We didn't sign up for a war against some Hungarian and European Jews like George Soros. Like George Soros.
Póngase en el mismo lado de una vez.
That saith to the deep, be dry, and I will dry up the rivers. That saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. 1927, the Shrine of Remembrance was laid in the King's Domain. A King's Domain was formed out of a royal botanical garden that had existed there since about the 1850s. So that Shrine of Remembrance was built in memory of your Anzac, severing your country from England, only for a pope to take over the crown in England and take over all the countries that were in the British Empire, divide and conquer them. But your Anzac did something in a Treaty of Versailles that had preceded that. They had formed the Kingdom of Australia at international law, in front of the international community. The Treaty of Versailles is Albo's worst enemy right now, because 3 days ago he did go and honour mandate for German New Guinea and say congratulations for growing up to become an international country with a right of self-determination. Those Zionist European Jews will not let Palestine become that. And the British were like, whoa, we don't want to suffer a war and death of our people merely for being the nanny to that. And then turn this all around, the Australia Act let us patent 1984. They took control of you again. They took control of you again. Dishonouring the Statute of Westminster 1931, dishonouring the Imperial Conferences 1926, dishonouring the Treaty of Versailles that Albo openly admitted is still in play today. So, a lot of you might not understand what's going on right now, but we have the upper hand at law here. We have the ability to define on a Supreme Court, Federal Court and High Court the foundations of this country. I can be your best friend, or I could be your biggest problem, is what I would say to people like the RSL, is what I would say to people like the police, is what I would say to those politicians in Parliament. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. You should honour and serve God, King and country in a true lineage defined at the Supreme Court, which stands in international law. Or you should face the consequences of your actions in that international law for going outside those rules of engagement and committing heinous and serious war crimes offences across the world, including on Australian soil, with that jibby-jab. The jibby-jab, right? Scott Morrison, you did something to old age care homes. You allowed a Governor General to command a Lieutenant Task Force Commander, Lieutenant Commander Fruin, who oversaw the poisoning of 24,000 New South Wales students in a stadium, in a football stadium, dragged them all in buses and jabbed them on the fly. Boom, 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 next bus, boom, 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 next bus, boom, 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 next bus. How many people died in that stadium? I think it was 2 or 3 died right in front of them. They won't talk about it because they're a bunch of war criminals for doing it. Does that sound like Nazi Germany to you? Dragging all the people into a camp to be poisoned? What was that yellow star for? What did those Zionists gaslight you with in the United Nations, and not one of you knew your history well enough to say, take that star off? None of you knew your history well enough to say to those Zionist pigs, you shouldn't be wearing that star. You're the one that caused it all. You're the one that's involved in it all, poisoning the entire population of Israel to 100% with the extra jibby-jabbies. And if it be found out that they are genetic trains to be used in banking, then you are cattle tagging slaves. Cattle tagging slaves. And you should be held accountable to the full force of the law for your actions, which would mean hanging from the neck until dead for your serious international war crimes, which would be considered to be a Nuremberg offence.
Breaking news, we've uncovered the 2 minutes and 38 seconds that have been redacted from Epstein's jail footage.
Oh, finally. Now we can finally prove it wasn't Israel.
Roll the clip, Brittany.
Give us the files! Okay. I am getting them off my Premiere right now. Hurry up!
All right, looks like we uncovered it, and
my grandparents were into peace and cause.
Looks like we lost it.
What happened to the missing clips?
The court said we don't have to show them because we're busy balming the innocent. That was antiseptic. Bergstein.
Why haven't you censored people screaming about America first and Jesus? It's all Hamas propaganda.
We're working on it. As you know, we've already made it illegal to burn the Jew flag. The American one, well, that's still up for debate.
Questioning the sand situation is now illegal, right, Jackie?
That's right, John. No one's starving. No one's being genocided. Just ask Zioberg.
And if you look at the people from Hamas, when they get photographed, they're well fed. None of them are hungry. I guarantee you, look at their faces, look at their bodies. And instead of food, they could use some Ozempic.
Ozempic, when you just can't stop stuffing your gluttonous face.
Side effects include permanent thyroid cancer and gut dysbiosis.
Ozempic, the easy way out.
That's a good reason to trust your doctor.
Really, though. And guess who runs Big Pharma?
Every single time, Brittany?
We go to Shapiro-Stein for the hot take.
Just because 85% of American Israeli Jews support the genocide in Gaza doesn't mean it's the Jews. Just ask God. We're chosen. Back to you, John.
Thanks, Shapiro-Stein. I let the producer bend me over behind the studio, still waiting to see the results on my paycheck.
In other news, here's how the influencers feel about the sand people.
How could they talk about killing children? We're not advocating to target children, but forgive us if we don't give a shit. If, everybody there dies. It's just the way we feel. It's just the way Israelis feel.
Ugh, I'm sick to my stomach.
This is all part of draining the swamp, Jackie. Let him finish.
If you gave me a button to just erase Gaza, every single living being in Gaza would no longer be living tomorrow, I would press it in a second.
Babe, did you pay off the medical bills?
Most Israelis
if
probably
that's
agree.
The choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you to call the insurance hawk.
It's all 4D chess, honey. He should have just called the insurance hawk, right, Jackie?
Didn't they do COVID-19? I mean, same with 9/11. Like, why can't I notice JFK and the fake weapons of mass destruction too?
Shut it down. Everybody say bye-bye to Jackie.
Wow, I guess Producer Berg wasn't too happy about this episode.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to Jackie. Can't be good.
Okay, we come to the end of another episode. Now, I make no apologies for the way that I act, given that the amount of ego that is being pushed around instead of actually knowing or caring about the reality of this situation is beyond me. You are a country as a people. And to be that people would be to stand up in your communities firstly and try and help your communities from falling down into the gutter created by not only Albo's government. You heard Clive Palmer. These people have dinners behind your back and plot against you in a left versus right, red versus blue, Liberal versus Labour, and the Greens, the commies, and One Nation is One Israel Party, Israel First Party. Very obvious, by the way, Pauline's using the flag to raise money. Very disgusting coming from a senator, right? So it's up to you to realise that we have the law on the table now. We actually have the ability to sit before a justice and put this claim on the record and actually see these people charged with their war crimes. Real world war crimes committed by this establishment that Clive Palmer admits are working in cahoots behind closed doors against you, against all of you. So as usual, our link's down below. Buy a shirt, participate, drop in some donations, send some gifts, send some stuff that you want to talk about it in the comments below. Enquires at spiersmedia.com if you have any inquiries about how you can participate properly, I mean in courtrooms with barristers and all that sort of stuff, then we're opening these avenues now, and the continued support in the donations has allowed us to keep this going forward and grow it slightly larger every time. So we look forward to standing up and defending our Constitution, not tantying in the streets with flags. Now, that red standard is a father's flag. I make all of your families aware that in World War I it was the fathers and the sons over the age of 20 that volunteered to go to battle. Literally got off their asses, most of them farm boys, shooting rabbits and stuff at home, made them crack shots on the battlefield. And that's been taken away from you and is further being taken away from you by a government that committed international war crimes against you. Therefore, like relinquishing its right to operate under its rules of engagement. You're talking about some government authority behind Albo that chose to poison all of you on behalf of bankers. HSBC reported that your DNA would become your data. This was very relative to your future in an AI world that you've given all your data to. And you continue to do so with all these modern contraptions like Apple EarPods that read your brainwaves, like those rings that read all of your body analysis, like those Ring cameras that have got a view, and they're mostly in America, but they've got a view out the front of your property. And when they can add all those views together, they have I Spy on the ground in the front of every house. And you're openly giving them that ability to spy on you. Spy on you.
I just got off the phone with my health insurance and I said, hey guys, why did you deny my claim? And they said, hey girl, sorry, we're actually using AI now. So the AI said that this claim is not good. And I was like, oh hey, can you tell me why? Because I went to a doctor I've been to in the past, at a location I've been to in the past, with an insurance I've had in the past. Should be all good, right? Should be very chill. And they said, no, we can't tell you why it got denied. As someone that works professionally with AI all day, I love a good AI. This is not a good AI though. Do you guys want to guess what I went to the doctor for? Because I know you're probably thinking, oh, it's something controversial, it's something complicated, the AI couldn't quite figure out if it was okay or not. It was my annual physical. They said sometimes you can just wait for the AI to change its mind though. Okay, when will it do that? Because, you know, as a technical person, I'm like, what does that actually mean? In theory, if you're using AI, it means you're running your code or you're running your model on the data that is my medical claim. Why would it change its mind? Are you just gonna run it again one day, randomly? Is it best 2 out of 3? And they're like, well, ma'am, sometimes it just changes its mind. Okay, well, what if it doesn't change its mind?
So, moving forward, we should look at the defence of our Constitution. And our RSLs are under oath and are supposed to be obligated to stand up and speak in defence of that Constitution, but instead refer to politics all the time and the government of the day, when we have demonstrated that the government is the public servant of that force, not the other way around. How did it come to be the other way around? And why are all these soldiers living in caravans instead of homes? Why is there a large suicide rate amongst soldiers? Why is there this whole problem with attempting to get DVA? Why is this whole problem of attempting to register as injured while at work under occupational health and safety guidelines that this army just fails to acknowledge continuously, putting your ex-members, your veterans, in severe distress to the point where they commit suicide? That's the responsibility of the government of the day that wants you to serve it all the time, but when it comes to you being compensated for that service, they wipe their hands of you. And then you end up living in caravans and being homeless and living in public housing because the government of the day don't give a fuck about you. Don't give a fuck about your veterans. Don't give a fuck about anything because they've got all the data they need from all of you to treat you like shit, to use and abuse your data and manipulate your society into constant further subordination. You can see now what I'm speaking is becoming a reality. And it's up to all of you to share this information out. You are dealing with some very sick people running your country, like Anthony Albanese and co, like Scott Morrison and co, who are linked at the hip behind closed doors because they're both under the thumb of some Zionist Federation of Australia, foreign influencing them from a terrorist organisation that's now committed genocide. And like the lady at the beginning said, the rabid dog don't care. It's going to turn on you eventually, only to save itself. And you're starting to see that happen now with the manipulation of your politicians by that Zionist agenda. They're stuck in international law and they know it. They're stuck because they know that they occupy this land, and under the foundations laid down already, they are liable to the jibby-jabby and all the other war crimes that they have participated in up a command line responsibility into the Governor-General's office that is totally complicit in trying to remove your Anzac and the lineage under the blessing of Almighty God, under the Kingdom of Australia, under the Constitution thereby established, from your Constitution altogether. Albo and the Governor-General are responsible for that. And it's time now you started to speak the reality of this instead of all the politics. Tantying in the streets with a foreign blue ensign is not fixing your country. Standing up to them and putting it on the court record like in a Nuremberg offence is what's going to move you forward. You are You have the opportunity right now to put all of those names on the record and send that entire record to the United Nations inspection team that tried to come here and inspect those forensic mental health facilities inside New South Wales jails.
You mean to tell me people willingly put in these devices into their homes that were listening to everything they were saying? This is so clearly spying on you, they weren't even trying to hide it. Why would anyone buy this?
Hey Google, make a fart sound.
This is a fart.
So what you can see from us is this importance of laying these foundations and pushing that accountability back onto those responsible. I've mentioned quite a few names today. I've given you quite a lot of evidence today. It's very, very clear what's going on, considering that the Pope left the building in 2019, recalling all movable property, which would then cause the crash to lead Israel into this Holocaust. It's very much the same as what happened in Nazi Germany, right? But then the Catholic Church got caught out, taking all of the gold teeth, watches, necklaces, rings, and so on, that were taken from the dead, that were put into those execution camps or debtors' camps. Your work will set you free is written above Auschwitz Gate. Your work will set you free. That can only mean debtor camp. Debtor camp. And as a country, look at where America's going. Look at where Australia's going. Canada, New Zealand. And you have an opportunity as men and women to stand up and stop this stuff. Now, we need your support to go into those courtrooms. We've only managed to raise a couple of $1,000s and put that aside. It's not enough. And I'm not saying that you should get off your ass and give it all your money away. No, you should share this information out to your communities and tell them that they have an opportunity to hold these councils, states, and the federal government to account. But it's going to take your effort. You're not going to rely on someone else. We can speak on your behalf by your donations, down the links below. But at the end of the day, you're your communities. You have to speak up to your Lord Mayors who are wholly complicit in a Nuremberg offence, wholly complicit in pushing an ideology from a state and federal government. Oh, we had to just follow orders was no excuse at law. And you're starting to realise that the power is in your hands when you realise who you are.
Spotify, where music goes to die. Funding killer drones using AI. Spotify, you want war and genocide? Well, we'd rather not be here if you don't mind. Spotify uses money made from artists' music to invest in war machines and line the pockets of billionaires whose hands are far from clean. So we packed our bags, Peddle and Bandcamp is where to go to hear all our songs. This is the last you hear from us here, so goodbye. And stop wasting your life with Spotify.